Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The Oregon Ducks commitment sweatshirt comes back on for what I believe is a third time in the last couple of days. Four-star linebacker Gavin Nix flipping his commitment from Miami to Oregon. The Miami Hurricane fans, who I'm sure might be checking this out as well, y'all know I'm a really big fan of this kid. And for the Oregon fans, that player comp that I always go to with Gavin Nix is Nakobe Dean. They have very similar characteristics at the linebacker position. This was a guy that Dan Lanning coached back at Georgia. Not necessarily the biggest, longest linebacker, but an extremely fast linebacker that closes the distance between himself and the ball carrier at an extremely high level. But I think my favorite aspect about Gavin Nix, and this is something that makes Nakobe Dean such a special linebacker, not only at Georgia, but now what he's doing in the NFL, the football IQ, like the ability to diagnose what's happening in front of them and just play not only physically really fast, but play mentally really fast as well. That's something with Devin Jackson, really fast football player. They kind of need to click between the ears for Devin Jackson. Gavin Nix is one of those linebackers that you can see on the high school film, probably being at IMG Academy the last couple of years, that from a football IQ standpoint, it's really good with this kid. Excited to get into the film now. Before we do, and as always, the Oregon Duck fans, it doesn't sound like this is going to be the last firework that we see for Oregon in this 2025 recruiting cycle. Obviously, signing day coming up over the next couple of days. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. To the Oregon Duck fans, it's been a blast talking this football team in 2024, but it's also been a blast talking about this team on the recruiting trail, in the transfer portal. All the support y'all show means the absolute world. Without further ado, let's get into Gavin Nix. And again, 6', 225. This kid is put together, right? He's not a 6'4" linebacker with a ton of length. The physicality in which Gavin Nix plays with does not lack one bit. I think the second thing you really like about Gavin Nix is the play speed and the athleticism. You look at the modern era of college football and what linebackers need to do, and this is something we talk about a lot. There's a lot of different responsibility. Gone are the days where we're just playing linebackers between the tackles. You got to go out into the flat and make plays in space on running backs. You got to be able to go sideline to sideline, cover tight ends up the seam. You need linebackers that have a lot of athleticism, but also can be physical when they need to be. Gavin Nix is that kind of guy for me. You can do so many different things with him. He'll play that overhang linebacker and kind of play in space. He'll also be very good blitzing as a linebacker as well, which we know Tosh Lupoy and Dan Lanning like to do. Really good football player, seemingly a really good fit in this Oregon defense. And I think more importantly, you look at Oregon in the 2025 cycle and say, this is really the only true off-ball linebacker that they've signed in 2025. So it's big to get this kid in the fold. Now you start diving into the film. There's a lot to like about what Gavin Nix brings to the table. And I think it just starts with how fast this kid plays. I mean, you see him, he's like a heat-seeking missile to the football. Really good ability to, I mean, this is probably the best example we're going to see all on the film, right? Seeing that screen a mile away, not only seeing it awfully quickly, now we got to close the distance between myself and the ball carrier. Go and get him. Like that sideline to sideline speed, that ability to close that gap very quickly. And you're going to see this kid, he plays with so much energy as well. Very good athlete in space. Like he's one of those linebackers that you can have him spy the quarterback and feel pretty dang confident that he's going to make plays on the quarterback. Coming off the edge backside. Again, what are you seeing right here? Hey, we got two offensive linemen pulling to the play side. We're going to chase it down backside and go make a play. One, seeing that, and then two, having the physical ability to be fast to the football and chase it down from the backside. Those are the two things you love about Gavin Nix. And again, he just plays with so much juice. So he does seem like a guy that's going to fit how Dan Lanning wants to play football on the defensive side of the ball. Closing the distance, making plays in space, just a juiced up athletic linebacker that you're seeing him do all sorts of things. You're seeing him play the pass. You're seeing him play as that delayed linebacker, whether he's behind the quarterback, whether he's blitzing. You're seeing him come up and fit the run. He's not the biggest linebacker at 6'4", 225, but he really doesn't lack any physicality. In fact, it's probably one of his better assets. Is he's a very physical player at the point of attack. This is, I mean, you see this getting kind of working through traffic. One, often this is a wide receiver kind of on a crackback here. We're going to work through it and then still have that sideline to sideline speed to go out and get the ball carrier. Really, really big fan of this kid. Oregon in 2025. It sounds like they're going to have a maybe top 5 class in the country, depending on how things shake out. Now, the names you're kind of looking at for signing day, I think it starts with quarterback Jaren Kiwi-Sagablute, a guy that was trending to Oregon for a very long time. It sounds like Cal might be able to keep him in the fold. Look, I love this kid. We've talked about him a bunch the last couple of weeks. He's breaking pretty much every record there is to break in the state of Hawaii. And you think about all the quarterbacks that have played there, guys like Dylan Gabriel, guys like Tua. This kid's really good. Big arm, lefty gunslinger. I like him a lot. But even if Oregon doesn't land him, and this is kind of important to note, the 2025 class is kind of just a small sample size of how you go about building your roster. I look at Jaren and say, Oregon's probably just going to be fine at quarterback, right? You already got a 2026 you're locked in. You already have 2025 and Achilles Smith. You're trending for Jared Curtis in the 2026 class. Dante Moore's on this roster. Yes, we want to add as many good quarterbacks as we can, but it's a pretty loaded quarterback room for the Oregon Ducks. The next name you got to look for, Lincoln Cure. Sounds like good things are happening for the Oregon Ducks and with Lincoln Cure, 6'6", 220, a state champ and the hurdle. Like, this kid is a freak show of an athlete. There's a reason he's the number 1 tight end in the country. And I mean, this is one of those positions that's really important to Oregon, right? There's a lot of Power 4 programs that don't really value tight ends all that much because they don't use them that much. Oregon wants difference makers at the tight end position. Lincoln Cure and Kenny Sadiq next year with Terrence Ferguson moving on. And you have some other tight ends that I like too. Lincoln Cure is a difference maker. Big body, massive catch radius, a guy that is just a matchup nightmare for whoever's trying to cover him. Like, if you're fast enough to deal with him, you probably don't have the size. If you have the size to deal with him, you're probably not fast enough to deal with him. That's kind of that nightmare guy for Lincoln Cure. And the last one Naheem offered. Now, Naheem offered trending probably to Auburn. It sounds like Ohio State, Auburn are kind of battling it out. And again, we've learned our lesson in terms of counting out Dan Lanning. You don't do it. But it does sound like Oregon's going to keep 5-star cornerback Brandon Finney. And so you look at Oregon kind of similar at the quarterback spot and say, yeah, we love Jaren, or we love Naheem offered to become Oregon Ducks. But you also look at the landscape and future of the cornerback position. Go back to 2024. I thought this was one of the better cornerback defensive back classes in the country that Oregon signed. You have guys like Brandon Finney locked in 2025, and it sounds like Oregon's going to keep Brandon Finney. You feel pretty good about where Oregon is at the cornerback spot too. And anything they miss on in 2025, because we've seen it, Dan Lanning will address it in the transfer portal. Going to be an exciting next 28 or 24, 48 hours. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.